Before the Great War turned the world into ash and ruin, power armor was not a symbol of wasteland survival, but the pinnacle of human engineering and military ambition. It was the armored skeleton of a dying empire, a metal exosuit designed to make soldiers into walking tanks. Long before the Brotherhood of Steel or the Enclave hoarded these suits as relics of power, they were born from desperation, the fear of losing a war that was devouring resources faster than it could be fought. The story of power armor begins with the T-45, a prototype that marked humanity's first step toward merging man and machine in the pursuit of domination. Developed by Westech and the U.S. military in 2067, the T-45 was revolutionary for its time. It allowed soldiers to carry heavier weapons, absorb immense amounts of damage, and operate in conditions that would have crippled ordinary infantry. But even this early model was clunky, difficult to maintain, and power-hungry. It relied on bulky fusion cores that needed frequent replacement, and its servos often failed under prolonged use. Yet, on the battlefield of Anchorage, Alaska, where the U.S. clashed with China in a frozen war for resources, it proved to be a game changer. American troops outfitted with T-45 power armor could storm enemy lines with terrifying force, shrugging off machine gun fire and returning it with devastating efficiency. The liberation of Anchorage became one of the most famous victories in American military history, and it solidified the role of power armor as the future of warfare. After Anchorage, the military knew the T-45 was only the beginning. Engineers at Westech began developing a successor, the T-51, a suit that would refine every weakness of its predecessor. Introduced just before the Great War in 2077, the T-51 was sleeker, lighter, and more efficient, powered by advanced fusion cores that could last for days instead of hours. It became the gold standard of power armor issued to elite units across the country. The design incorporated composite materials and advanced servo systems that made movement smoother, almost natural. In Fallout 4, the T-51 is often recognized by its rounded helmet and smooth chestplate, a design that feels distinctly pre-war in its elegance. Lore describes it as being capable of shrugging off direct hits from heavy weaponry, even artillery fire. In practice, soldiers describe the sensation of wearing one as being the closest thing to immortality. But despite its superiority, the T-51 came too late to save the world it was meant to defend. When the bombs fell, countless suits were vaporized in an instant. Others were buried, locked in armories, or left to rust in forgotten battlefields. Yet, in the centuries that followed, scavengers, soldiers, and wanderers would stumble upon these relics and bring them back to life, unknowingly carrying forward a piece of humanity's most ambitious and catastrophic invention. Among the earliest post-war groups to rediscover power armor was the Brotherhood of Steel, formed from remnants of the U.S. military who took refuge at the Mariposa military base. The Brotherhood became obsessed with recovering and preserving pre-war technology. For them, power armor wasn't just protection, it was a symbol of purity and control in a world gone mad. Early Brotherhood initiates treated power armor as both armor and ritual. They learned how to repair the suits, maintain the fusion cores, and even craft new variants using scavenged parts. Some chapters, like those in the Mojave and Capital Wasteland, developed unique modifications and insignias that reflected their identity and beliefs. For example, the East Coast Brotherhood often favored the T-45D and T-51B models, while the Western chapters experimented with T-62s and custom derivatives. The T-60 inches particular stands out as a bridge between pre-war technology and post-war adaptation. Developed after the Anchorage campaign but before the bombs, the T-60 combined the durability of the T-51 with improved mobility and a more menacing appearance. It became the Brotherhood's most iconic armor in Fallout 4, with its massive pauldrons, glowing visors, and militaristic aesthetic that mirrored the faction's growing authoritarian streak. Though many fans assume the T-60 was a direct upgrade to the T-51, lore suggests it was actually an interim model, a mass production variant optimized for the occupation of Alaska and domestic defense rather than frontline combat. It wasn't necessarily better, but it was more practical, cheaper, and easier to maintain, qualities the U.S. military valued as the war economy strained to its limits. In Fallout's timeline, the Great War's sudden and total destruction froze technological evolution in place. For 2 centuries, humanity lived among the wreckage of its own brilliance, scavenging whatever could still function. This is why power armor became such a rare and revered sight in the post-apocalyptic world. Most people couldn't even operate one, let alone maintain it. The suits required power armor training, specialized maintenance frames, and a steady supply of fusion cores, things few Wastelanders had. The Enclave, however, was a different story. As the self-proclaimed continuation of the pre-war U.S. government, the Enclave retained access to advanced military schematics and production facilities. They developed their own line of post-war suits, most notably the Advanced Power Armor, also known as the Mark II in Fallout 2. This design featured a sleek, black composite exterior and a distinct skull-like visor that struck fear into anyone who saw it. Unlike earlier models, the Advanced Power Armor was built entirely from post-war materials, incorporating lightweight alloys and improved energy dispersion systems. It symbolized both the arrogance and technical prowess of the Enclave, a reminder that even in the ashes of civilization, humanity couldn't resist creating new instruments of power. The progression from T-45 to Advanced Power Armor reflects not just an evolution of engineering, but of philosophy. Early suits like the T-45 were designed to win wars. Later versions, like the X-01, first introduced in Fallout 4, were built to dominate them. The X-01 is often considered the pinnacle of power armor design, an experimental suit created by a shadowy division of the Enclave after the Great War. Its angular design, reinforced armor plating, and internal climate control make it one of the most advanced suits in existence. The lore surrounding the X-01 suggests it was developed as part of a classified post-war project aimed at creating a suit that could survive any environment, radiation, vacuum, or extreme temperatures. This aligns with its in-game performance, where it offers the highest damage and radiation resistance of any non-unique armor. The glowing red eyes and segmented armor plating give it an almost alien aesthetic, reflecting how far humanity had drifted from its original ideals. The X-01 wasn't built to save the world. It was built to rule what was left of it. But Power Armor's story isn't just about models and specifications. It's also about the human experience of wearing one. Inside the suit, soldiers described feeling invincible yet trapped, their every movement amplified by servos, but also controlled by the machine. The suit's hydraulics hissed with every step, its sensors displayed data in real time, and the world outside felt distant, muffled, almost unreal. In Fallout 4, this sensation is captured perfectly when the player first steps into a power armor frame and hears the heavy clunk of metal locking into place. The first-person perspective, the vibration of the servos, and the mechanical breathing sounds all evoke that sense of becoming something more than human, yet less at the same time. It's a transformation, one that reflects the central theme of the Fallout series: humanity's endless pursuit of progress, even when it leads to ruin. Power armor was humanity's answer to its own fragility. It was both salvation and sin, protection and prison, depending on who wore it. The Brotherhood's reverence for power armor often took on an almost religious quality. In Fallout 3, Paladins spoke of their suits as extensions of their faith in technology, while in Fallout 4, initiates underwent rigorous training to earn the right to wear one. The process was as much spiritual as it was technical, a ritual of cleansing and calibration. The Brotherhood believed that only through mastery of technology could humanity reclaim its former glory. In contrast, the Enclave saw power armor as a divine right, a symbol of superiority over the mutant filth of the wasteland. This difference in ideology is why their suits, though similar in function, feel so different in design. The Brotherhood's armor is bulky, mechanical, and utilitarian, built for service and discipline. The Enclave's is sleek, predatory, and elitist, built for domination. Even within the Brotherhood, different chapters viewed power armor differently. The Midwestern Brotherhood, featured in Fallout Tactics, emphasized practicality and adaptation, modifying their suits for various environments, while the Lost Hills chapter hoarded the original models as sacred artifacts. This diversity of interpretation shows how power armor became more than a weapon. It became a symbol of identity. Over time, the wasteland itself began to adapt to power armor. Raiders and scavengers developed their own makeshift versions, cobbling together plates of metal and salvaged servos into crude imitations. In Fallout 76, these are represented by Raider power armors, rusted, jagged, and menacing. They lack the refinement of military models, but they capture the essence of survival, using whatever you can find to become something more powerful. Meanwhile, miners and workers developed industrial variants, such as the Excavator power armor. This model, unique to Fallout 76, was originally designed by Garahan Mining Company for use in extreme environments like deep underground or irradiated zones. Its enhanced strength allowed users to carry more material, while its reinforced plating provided unparalleled radiation protection. When the world ended, miners became scavengers, and the Excavator became a new kind of armor, not for war, but for survival. Its inclusion in Fallout lore demonstrates how power armor transcended its military roots and became a part of everyday life in the wasteland. Each suit tells a story, not just of the person who wore it, but of the world that made it necessary. From the gleaming chrome of pre-war prototypes to the rusted hulks scavenged centuries later, power armor represents both the best and worst of humanity. It's a reminder that progress always comes with a cost, and that sometimes the armor we wear to protect ourselves can become the cage that keeps us from moving forward. Even now, in the quiet ruins of Appalachia, the glowing silhouettes of power armor can be seen moving through the night. Lone wanderers in metal shells, searching for something worth protecting in a world that's already lost everything. The T-60 may have been born in the final years before the Great War, but its legacy was written long after. When the Brotherhood of Steel began to expand across the ruins of America, they uncovered scattered caches of these suits locked inside abandoned military installations. In the Capital Wasteland, those rediscovered armories gave rise to the modern image of the Brotherhood, disciplined knights marching in gleaming T-60 power armor beneath the fractured skyline of Washington, D.C. The T-60 was a natural fit for the Order's aesthetic. It embodied strength, authority, and technological supremacy. Its heavy plating could withstand direct hits from energy weapons, while its reinforced servos allowed the wearer to move with surprising grace. The armor's weight distribution was nearly perfect, giving soldiers a sense of balance unmatched by earlier models. When a paladin walked across broken concrete, each step echoed like a mechanical heartbeat, steady, deliberate, unstoppable. Despite its imposing look, the T-60 wasn't invincible. Prolonged radiation exposure could corrode its joints, and its power regulators were notoriously finicky. The Brotherhood scribes worked tirelessly to restore and modify these ancient systems. They crafted new circuits from scavenged pre-war tech, rewired servo systems using recycled components, and even designed new paint coatings to reflect radiation. The result was a patchwork of armor, each suit subtly different, customized to the knight who wore it. Some Brotherhood chapters would emblazon their insignia across the chest plate, while others preferred muted steel tones, as if to blend into the ruins. Each T-60 told a story of the wastelander who found it, the technician who repaired it, and the paladin who trusted it with their life. In Fallout 4, the Brotherhood's airship, the Prydwen, houses entire rows of these suits, gleaming like relics of a forgotten era, a visual reminder of the faction's devotion to preserving the old world's might. While the T-60 served as the Brotherhood's symbol, the Enclave continued down a different path, one driven by secrecy, science, and superiority. Their obsession with perfection led to the creation of the Hellfire Power Armor, one of the most advanced and terrifying suits ever built. First appearing in Fallout 3's Broken Steel expansion, the Hellfire model was designed to withstand not just radiation or bullets, but complete environmental annihilation. Its armor plating was reinforced with heat-dispersing alloys capable of resisting incendiary and plasma weaponry. The suit's distinctive appearance, blackened plates accented with glowing orange vents, gave it a demonic silhouette, fitting for a faction that saw itself as divine arbiters of humanity's future. Inside, a complex array of coolant systems and servo-driven actuators allowed the wearer to move effortlessly despite the armor's extreme density. Enclave soldiers equipped with Hellfire suits were nightmares on the battlefield, capable of shrugging off missiles and returning fire with devastating flamethrowers. What makes the Hellfire Power Armor particularly haunting is how little is known about its production. By the time the Enclave deployed it in the capital wasteland, their numbers were dwindling, and their facilities were scattered across remote bunkers. Many historians believe the suits were built in the Poseidon Oil Research Facilities, or by remnants of the Navarro Division in California. Others think it was the product of post-war experimentation using pre-war prototypes recovered from sealed military archives. Whatever the truth, its existence proved that even in a world destroyed by nuclear fire, the Enclave still had the resources and arrogance to build new horrors. When you see an Enclave soldier emerging through smoke in full Hellfire armor, the wasteland's fragility feels painfully clear. The old world never died. It just found new armor to hide behind. Another lesser-known Enclave variant, the X2, serves as an evolutionary link between the Advanced Power Armor Mark II and the X-01 series. It first appeared in the Capital Wasteland and later resurfaced in Appalachia, each time shrouded in mystery. The X2's design incorporated modular plating and adaptive environmental controls, allowing for field modifications depending on the mission. It was sleeker than the Mark II and less bulky than the X-01, suggesting it may have been an experimental branch project that never reached full production. In Fallout 76, this armor became legendary among players for its menacing profile and versatility, offering both high protection and aesthetic intimidation. Within lore, It stands as proof that the Enclave's technological obsession didn't end with the war, it merely adapted. Some Wasteland rumors even suggest that certain rogue engineers continued refining the design long after the Enclave's defeat, crafting hybrid suits using stolen Brotherhood schematics. These black market variants, whispered about by traders, were said to combine the efficiency of the Enclave with the reliability of the Brotherhood, a mechanical fusion of two opposing philosophies. As power armor evolved through these designs, each iteration reflected its creator's ideology. The U.S. Army's models prioritized order and mass production. The Brotherhood's variants emphasized reverence and preservation, and the Enclaves were born of control and exclusion. Yet, in the Wasteland, necessity often stripped away ideology. Scavengers wearing pieced-together armor, what the Brotherhood might dismiss as heresy, became the new pioneers of innovation. Raider power armor, for example, represents the crude ingenuity of survivors. Using scrap metal, hydraulic pistons, and scavenged servos, Raider engineers created monstrous exoskeletons that looked like rusted nightmares. They lacked the fine-tuned precision of military suits, but they made up for it with sheer brutality. The armor's jagged plates often came from car hoods, boiler tanks, or even old aircraft fuselages. To many, they were ugly, a twisted reflection of the power armor's noble lineage, but to the Raiders, they were trophies of defiance. The Wasteland had stripped humanity of its polish, leaving only survival and spectacle, and the Raider suits captured both. Even more fascinating is the Excavator power armor, a true anomaly among the Wasteland's relics. Developed by Garahan Mining Company before the war, this suit wasn't designed for battle at all. It was intended for deep earth mining operations, to withstand crushing pressure and extreme heat. The Excavator's design prioritized strength and endurance, featuring hydraulic amplifiers that allowed its user to carry unprecedented loads. When players first encounter it in Fallout 76, it's clear that this suit isn't about combat dominance, it's about industrial power. But in the Wasteland, function quickly transforms into survival. Miners became scavengers, and their tools became weapons. The Excavator's heavy plating made it an ideal defensive suit, and its bright yellow paint became a symbol of resilience. Lore suggests that remnants of the Garahan workforce continued using the Excavator long after the bombs fell, adapting it with scavenged weapon mounts and reinforced plating. In a poetic way, it represents how civilization itself adapted, taking the tools of labor and reshaping them for endurance in a dead world. From there, the world of power armor only grew stranger. Experimental prototypes like the Ultrasight power armor began to appear, crafted from rare materials harvested from irradiated crystals found in Appalachia. Ultrasight was one of the most energy-reactive substances discovered after the war, capable of amplifying both energy weapon resistance and radiation absorption. According to Fallout 76 lore, the Brotherhood of Steel in Appalachia developed the Ultrasight power armor to combat the Scorched threat, creatures infected by a mysterious plague that fused radiation and organic tissue. This armor marked a rare example of true post-war innovation on par with pre-war technology. Unlike most power armor variants, Ultrasight armor glows faintly, as if infused with life itself, its crystalline veins pulsing with residual energy. To see one standing under the dim light of a ruined world is to witness the fusion of human technology and the unnatural evolution of the Wasteland. Even beyond the known models, countless unique variants and experimental suits have surfaced. The Quantum X-01, coated in a glowing blue quantum paint derived from Nuka-Cola's irradiated formula, is both beautiful and deadly. Its appearance feels like a relic from a world obsessed with style and spectacle, even at the end of civilization. The Nuka-Cola Corporation's involvement in such designs may sound absurd, but pre-war America's merging of military industry and corporate branding made it almost inevitable. Some collectors in the wasteland even claim to possess display model suits created for marketing events before the bombs fell, pristine and unused, locked behind glass in ruined corporate vaults. Each rediscovered suit tells its own story, sometimes through engraved serial numbers, faded paint, or embedded tracking chips that hint at its origins. Developers at Bethesda and Obsidian have often used power armor as a storytelling tool, not just a gameplay mechanic. In Fallout 3, the first time you witness a Brotherhood soldier stride into battle in full armor, the contrast between the ragged wastelanders and the metallic knight is striking. It conveys the gap between the old world and the new, between what was built and what was lost. Fallout New Vegas, on the other hand, treats power armor with reverence and danger. The Mojave Brotherhood hides deep within Hidden Valley, their once proud order reduced to secrecy, clinging to their relics as the world moves on without them. Power armor in that setting isn't just protection, it's a burden. The suits are heavy, impractical, and symbolize a stubborn refusal to adapt. That thematic contrast shows how flexible the idea of power armor can be, both salvation and shackle depending on who wears it. In gameplay terms, power armor has evolved just as dramatically as its lore. In the classic Fallout titles, suits functioned more like high-end armor sets, simple stat increases that represented elite equipment. But starting with Fallout 4, power armor became a living system. Players step into frames, replace fusion cores, swap limbs, and paint custom designs. This shift turned power armor into an experience rather than just an item. It's loud, mechanical, and immersive, every hiss and clank reminding the player of its weight and history. Some find that transformation exhilarating, others see it as a loss of mystery, but in either case, it captures the duality of Fallout's design philosophy, technology as both wonder and warning. When you climb inside, you're not just equipping armor, you're inhabiting the legacy of an extinct civilization. Among the most haunting depictions of power armor's cost is the story of the U.S. Army's final days. As the Great War loomed, vast storage facilities filled with unused suits waited for soldiers who would never arrive. In some Fallout lore entries, it's said that hundreds of suits remain buried beneath military bunkers, their systems still active, their fusion cores slowly ticking down after 200 years. Occasionally, wasteland explorers claim to hear faint mechanical noises in the dark, the hum of an ancient suit still waiting for its pilot to return. Whether true or myth, those stories remind us that even the most powerful machines eventually become ghosts. Power armor's significance stretches far beyond its physical design. It represents humanity's obsession with control over nature, over war, over mortality itself. Every plate and bolt is a declaration that man refused to accept his limits. Yet, in the end, it was that very refusal that ended the world. The same fusion technology that powered the suits also powered the bombs that destroyed civilization. The same scientists who built armor to save soldiers built weapons to annihilate nations. Fallout's brilliance lies in that irony. Power armor is both the symbol of progress and the monument to failure. When you see a lone wanderer trudging through the ruins in a suit of rusted steel, glowing faintly beneath the dead sky, you're not looking at triumph. You're looking at survival, humanity's final adaptation, wrapped in the skin of its own mistakes. Before the Great War reduced the world to silence, Power armor was already evolving in laboratories and testing grounds scattered across the continental United States. The government had poured billions into Westech, the defense contractor responsible for both the forced evolutionary virus and the earliest models of power armor. The military-industrial complex had reached a fever pitch, with every nation racing toward the next breakthrough in soldier enhancement. The United States saw the success of the T-45 during the Anchorage campaign not as an endpoint, but as proof of concept. Project engineers envisioned a future where every infantry unit could march in metal skin, immune to cold, bullets, and radiation. Secret test ranges across Alaska and California became the birthplace of the next generation, the T-51B, a marvel of refinement. Field reports from Anchorage claimed that soldiers outfitted with T-51B units could withstand missile shrapnel and return to combat almost instantly. The suit's servo-assisted strength allowed users to carry miniguns with the ease of a rifle, fundamentally changing how wars were fought. And yet, for all its brilliance, even the T-51 couldn't escape humanity's downfall. Production halted abruptly when the sirens began to sound on that October morning in 2077. Still, not all of Westech's secrets perished in the blasts. Deep in sealed facilities like Fort Strong, researchers were experimenting with prototype frames, precursors to what would later be known as the X-Series power armor. These experimental suits were designed for extreme environments, high radiation zones, zero-gravity conditions, even underwater deployment. Declassified memos found in Fallout 4 describe these prototypes as strategic combat platforms meant to extend American influence beyond Earth's atmosphere. Though it sounds fantastical, it fits with the pre-war mindset of limitless expansion and militarization. Some of these prototypes were still in early development when the bombs fell, and fragments of their designs would later resurface in Enclave engineering projects, especially the X-01. That lineage, from Westech's prototypes to the Enclave's perfectionism, forms one of the most fascinating threads in Fallout lore. It suggests that even after the end of civilization, the desire to upgrade, to improve, and to dominate never really died. The Anchorage campaign remains the most iconic pre-war battleground associated with power armor. The frozen tundra of Alaska, dotted with oil rigs and icebound refineries, became a proving ground for the U.S. Army's mechanized infantry, Chinese stealth soldiers, relying on speed and invisibility, met their match against armored juggernauts. The image of T-51 soldiers trudging through blizzards, their armor glowing faintly under the aurora, became propaganda legend. War posters across America showed heroic soldiers encased in shining steel, declaring slogans like "Forge the Future" and "Strength through Technology." For ordinary citizens, power armor became a symbol of invincibility. But for those who wore it, the experience was far more complex. Many soldiers reported psychological strain, claustrophobia, and detachment from reality. Being sealed inside a suit for days on end created a sense of disconnection, a recurring theme throughout Fallout storytelling. Beneath the patriotic veneer, there was always a quiet dread, the fear that man and machine were merging in ways that couldn't be undone. When the bombs fell, countless power armor units were deployed or stored across military zones, and many of those survived, inert, waiting for new masters. In the centuries that followed, power armor became a myth whispered among scavengers. Some claimed entire platoons were frozen in cryogenic stasis beneath the ice, still locked in their armor, unaware the war had ended. Others spoke of haunted suits that moved on their own, powered by decaying fusion cores. These legends gave rise to a new kind of reverence, blending superstition with technological awe. The Brotherhood of Steel, when they eventually emerged, treated these suits almost like relics from a lost religion. Every bolt and wire was sacred. The process of repairing one was ceremonial, a dance between preservation and resurrection. Fallout 76 sheds light on the early post-war years of this mythology. In Appalachia, power armor wasn't yet monopolized by the Brotherhood or the Enclave. Instead, it became a scavenger's dream. Mining companies, civilian engineers, and military remnants all experimented with available technology. Appalachia's proximity to numerous military research sites explains why the region became a cradle of power armor innovation. The T-51B and T-60 coexisted with experimental variants like the X-01 and Ultrasight suits. Brotherhood founder Roger Maxon's followers, who ventured east after the fall of Mariposa, discovered that fragments of old military research had spread farther than anyone imagined. Their recovery of these designs allowed them to maintain their technological edge, but it also set them apart from the rest of humanity. To wear power armor was to declare oneself part of a higher order, a division that would echo through centuries of Fallout's history. The pre-war world that created power armor was a place of contradictions. On one hand, it was unimaginably advanced: fusion-powered cars, robots, and automated factories. On the other, it was fragile, built on scarcity and fear. The United States was collapsing under the weight of resource wars, food shortages, and economic collapse. Power armor was not a symbol of progress. It was a symptom of desperation. The military's investment in exosuit technology was as much psychological as tactical, a way to reassure citizens that America still held the upper hand. The suits became the modern equivalent of knights' armor, icons of order in a crumbling world. Even the design language reflected this idealized nostalgia. The T-51's clean, rounded lines evoke mid-century optimism, while the later T-60's angular plating reflects paranoia and militarization. The evolution of design tells a story of shifting national identity, from proud protector to cornered predator. When players step into power armor in Fallout 4, they inherit that entire history without realizing it. Every hiss of hydraulics, every flicker of the heads-up display is a sensory echo of the world that built it. The fusion core hums like a mechanical heartbeat, a reminder that even survival in the wasteland depends on relics of the old world. It's why the sound design of power armor is so integral to its mystique. The metallic creak of joints, the weighty footfalls, the faint distortion of the player's voice, all combine to create the illusion of transformation. You're no longer just a survivor, you've become a machine. The Fallout developers have described this design philosophy as embodied history. Power armor isn't just equipment, it's storytelling through sound and sensation. It allows players to feel what the characters in Fallout's lore must have felt, that uneasy mix of power and confinement. Among the more obscure chapters in the history of power armor are the prototype suits that never saw the light of day. The T-43, for example, is occasionally referenced in concept materials as an intermediary model between the T-45 and T-51, possibly used for limited field testing. Its existence remains ambiguous, but it highlights the constant state of experimentation that defined pre-war military R&D. Another rumored prototype, the T-65, later appeared in Fallout 76 as a late-war heavy infantry suit developed for secret government units. Its frame was thicker, its power system more efficient, and it was supposedly intended to replace the T-60 before the bombs fell. In-game lore mentions that it was designed for use in urban pacification operations, a grim reminder that the U.S. government had begun turning its weapons inward as societal collapse worsened. Even within the Brotherhood's archives, tales circulate of experimental armor types built for specific environments: desert-modified suits with dust filtration, aquatic variants with pressurized seals, and even radiation-absorbing models created for vault experiments. These curiosities often appear in terminal entries or holotapes, fragments of a larger picture we'll never fully see. The implication is clear. The potential of power armor extended far beyond combat. It could have been the foundation for colonization, industrial reconstruction, or even space travel, but humanity's impatience and paranoia ensured that it would remain forever trapped in the context of war. The beauty of Fallout storytelling is that even in its ruins, echoes of the past endure. The player can stumble across a decayed military outpost, find the skeletal remains of a soldier still locked inside his armor, and hear the faint whir of a dying fusion core. In those moments, the line between lore and memory blurs. Power armor isn't just an artifact, it's a character. It has endured longer than its makers, outlived every government, and watched humanity rebuild itself again and again. Each new chapter of Fallout adds another layer, another coat of rust, or another field modification, but the soul of power armor remains the same. It is both the ultimate achievement and the ultimate failure of mankind. Some Brotherhood chapters have even developed rituals surrounding the recovery of fallen suits. In their doctrine, the death of a knight requires the retrieval of both body and armor, the former to honor, the latter to restore. A damaged frame might be melted down to forge components for a new initiate's armor, symbolizing continuity between generations. The act of recycling isn't just practical, it's spiritual. In that sense, power armor has become the Brotherhood's equivalent of a relic or sacred text, endlessly restored, endlessly revered. In the wasteland, where everything decays, the preservation of such technology becomes a kind of faith. Fallout 76's deeper exploration of Appalachia's Brotherhood and its experimental armors shows how that faith manifests. The faction there operates not as conquerors, but as archivists. They treat ultrasight suits as holy creations, born from both science and necessity. Their laboratories hum with the sounds of fusion calibrations and servo tests, as scribes document every fluctuation of radiation within the crystalline plating. The lore even describes how the ultrasight variant was adapted from T-51 and T-60 frameworks, a testament to the Brotherhood's pragmatic approach. Nothing is truly new, only rebuilt from what came before. The irony, of course, is that this cycle of preservation mirrors the wasteland's endless loop of decay and rediscovery. Humanity keeps finding its past and mistaking it for the future. If you walk through the ruins of a Brotherhood outpost, you might find the skeleton of a power armor frame still bolted to a maintenance rig. The paint may be faded, the servos locked in place, but the presence remains, a silent monument to ambition. Sometimes, terminals near these frames contain logs written by long-forgotten scribes. They speak of calibration tests, reactor failures, or routine maintenance, but between the lines, there's often something more human: exhaustion, doubt, or wonder. One entry from Fallout 4's Cambridge police station describes a scribe staring at an inactive suit late at night, reflecting on how strange it felt that a machine could outlast a civilization. Maybe, he wrote, that's what armor really is: not protection from death, but proof that we existed. That idea captures the essence of power armor better than any schematic ever could. It's the fossilized dream of a world that refused to accept its limits. Even rusted and cracked, it carries the weight of history, on its shoulders. Every player who dons it, every wanderer who repairs it, becomes part of that lineage. The suit may be mechanical, but the legacy inside it is deeply human. Within the Brotherhood of Steel, power armor is more than just equipment. It's a sacred inheritance, a physical embodiment of the organization's values. Every rank within the Brotherhood carries a defined relationship to the suit. Initiates, for instance, begin their training not by wearing armor, but by learning to maintain it. They spend months studying fusion core calibration, servo replacement, and radiation shielding under the supervision of senior scribes. The act of maintenance is considered a rite of passage. Only when an initiate demonstrates complete respect for the armor's complexity are they permitted to wear it. To don the suit prematurely is seen as both dangerous and blasphemous. Paladins and knights, on the other hand, are the Brotherhood's warriors, entrusted with full access to functioning suits. Their armor is often customized to reflect their personal achievements or mission history. The white and red markings of Paladin Dance's T60 inches Fallout 4, for example, are both ceremonial and practical, a visible rank distinction within the Brotherhood's disciplined hierarchy. Inside Brotherhood bunkers, power armor bays resemble cathedrals of industry. Rows of frames hang suspended from reinforced gantries, fusion cores glowing faintly in the dark like votive candles. Scribes in tattered robes walk between them, muttering diagnostic codes and reciting maintenance logs as if performing prayer. The sound of a suit booting up, the hydraulic hiss, the crackle of electricity, the low mechanical groan, echoes through the halls like a hymn. These details, present in Fallout 4's Pridewind or Lost Hills in older lore, show how deeply the Brotherhood's culture is intertwined with ritual. The Order believes that technology, when used without understanding, leads to ruin. Power armor, therefore, is not to be taken lightly. It represents both humanity's greatest triumph and its most dangerous temptation. Each chapter of the Brotherhood has interpreted that philosophy differently. The East Coast Brotherhood, under Elder Lyons, saw power armor as a tool to protect humanity. They deployed it openly in the streets of the Capital Wasteland, offering defense against super mutants and raiders. To them, the armor was a symbol of hope, but to the Western Brotherhood, the same armor was a symbol of separation, a boundary between the enlightened and the ignorant. They guarded their technology jealously, believing that only through isolation and discipline could humanity avoid repeating the mistakes of the past. This ideological divide is visible even in the way they maintain their suits. The Eastern chapters often modified their armor for flexibility and visibility, while the Western chapters focused on preservation and standardization. A Knight of Lost Hills might refuse to repaint or alter his armor, considering every scratch a sacred mark of history. Among the most iconic suits in Brotherhood lore is the T-51B winterized model, originally deployed during the Anchorage campaign. In Fallout 3's Operation Anchorage Simulation, players can earn this armor, a pristine pre-war variant that retains its full durability centuries later. The winterized T-51B represents the durability and mythic endurance of pre-war engineering. Lore suggests that the alloy used in its construction was a unique titanium ceramic composite resistant to both corrosion and energy damage. Many in the Brotherhood regard it as irreplaceable, often displaying recovered units in their bunkers as historical artifacts. Similarly revered is the Tesla Power Armor, an experimental Enclave variant featuring integrated Tesla coils for enhanced energy resistance and defense. Its signature crackling arcs of electricity and glowing blue accents make it one of the most visually striking armors in Fallout history. To face an Enclave soldier clad in a Tesla suit was to witness electricity itself turned into armor. Then there are suits that carry names not because of their make, but because of the legends who wore them. One of the earliest known Brotherhood figures associated with power armor lore is Roger Maxson, the founder of the Order. Maxson's original T-51 suit became a relic after his death, preserved at Lost Hills as a symbol of his legacy. Later figures, like Paladin Ramani from Fallout 76's Steel Dawn expansion, continue that lineage, her armor representing a new vision of the Brotherhood, one less defined by isolation and more by adaptation. These personal connections between wearer and armor give Fallout's technology a sense of continuity, as if the suits themselves remember. The dents, scorch marks, and repair welds all become part of a living history. In other regions, such as the Mojave, power armor holds a more conflicted reputation. The Brotherhood there is secretive and diminished, having suffered severe losses in the war against the New California Republic. To most Wastelanders, seeing a knight in full armor is an omen, a reminder of the old world's arrogance walking among them. In Fallout New Vegas, power armor training is deliberately rare, emphasizing that not everyone can simply climb into a suit and operate it. This restriction adds realism and weight to the lore. It reflects the idea that power armor isn't merely clothing or protection. It's a machine that demands discipline and understanding. Without training, a person would likely crush themselves under its own weight or fail to synchronize with the servo feedback loops. Some groups have gone even further in redefining what power armor means. The Enclave, for instance, views it as both symbol and weapon. Their elite soldiers, particularly those stationed at Raven Rock and Adams Air Force Base, wore Advanced Power Armor Mark II, an evolution of the pre-war concept into something truly post-human. Its glossy black plating and skeletal design were meant to intimidate as much as protect. Unlike Brotherhood suits, which often required external power frames for maintenance, the Enclave's armor integrated its own internal stabilizers and self-regulating power systems. In many ways, the Mark II reflected the Enclave's ideology: isolationist, self-contained, and obsessed with perfection. Its wearers moved with mechanical precision, their helmets' red optics scanning the battlefield like unfeeling eyes. Despite their technological prowess, the Enclave's relationship with power armor eventually became their downfall. The very suits that gave them superiority also created a dependency. Without them, their soldiers were ordinary. When the Enclave's infrastructure collapsed, their armor became scattered across the wasteland. To this day, remnants of those suits can be found deep within military ruins, still humming faintly with residual energy. To the Brotherhood, finding one is both a prize and a warning. They strip it for parts, study its systems, and log its components, but they never forget what it represented: humanity's pride turned inward. Power armor has also found unique adaptations in less conventional corners of the wasteland. The Rust Devils of the Commonwealth, a raider group obsessed with robotics, are known to modify captured suits with mechanical augmentations, exposed servos, grafted limbs, and crude saw blades. These grotesque fusions of human creativity and machine cruelty highlight how far the world has fallen from its orderly beginnings. The Rust Devil's armor may be hideous, but it's also strangely poetic. It's the logical endpoint of unrestrained scavenging, where the line between human, robot, and armor blurs completely. Meanwhile, some Fallout 76 factions explored power armor not as a weapon, but as a tool for reconstruction. The Responders, a humanitarian group, used salvaged suits to clear debris, rescue survivors, and contain radiation zones. Their armors were often painted in bright emergency colors, a rare sight of optimism in the wasteland. It's easy to overlook these details, but they add a profound layer to Fallout's lore. Power armor isn't inherently good or evil. It mirrors the intentions of those who wield it. The same technology that crushes enemies under steel boots can also pull a trapped civilian from the rubble. Another dimension of power armor's cultural impact comes from the myths that grew around it. In some settlements, particularly in the Midwest and Commonwealth, stories circulate of ghost soldiers, silent figures seen wandering the ruins in dented armor, their fusion cores long dead, their visors glowing faintly in the dark. Children whisper that they're the spirits of old-world soldiers still fighting a war that ended 2 centuries ago. These tales blur the line between superstition and science, reinforcing how deeply power armor has embedded itself in post-war folklore. The idea of an indestructible machine that outlives its maker taps into one of Fallout's oldest themes, the futility of trying to outlast one's mistakes. From a technical standpoint, the engineering behind power armor continues to fascinate both players and lore scholars. Each model represents a distinct design philosophy. The T-45's hydraulics, for example, relied heavily on external frames and exposed pistons, giving it a raw, industrial look. The T-51 refined this with internalized actuators and improved balance. The T-60 and later models integrated sensor arrays capable of targeting assistance, environmental scanning, and even biometric monitoring. Enclave armors, like the Hellfire and X-01, went a step further, embedding neural feedback systems that allowed near-instantaneous response times. Essentially, the armor could learn from its user, adjusting power distribution and resistance dynamically. This blurred the boundary between man and machine even further, turning the suit into a symbiotic organism rather than a tool. Thematically, Fallout's writers have always used power armor as a metaphor for humanity's duality. To wear it is to gain protection, but also to lose vulnerability, a quality that defines what it means to be human. In many ways, power armor serves as the franchise's most potent symbol. When you see a lone wanderer trudging through radioactive dust in a T-51, it encapsulates everything Fallout stands for: strength, survival, nostalgia, and regret. The armor looks invincible, but inside it is always a fragile human being, haunted by the same fears that destroyed the old world. Perhaps that's why so many factions are drawn to it. Despite their differing ideologies, the Brotherhood sees redemption through mastery of technology. The Enclave sees purity through control. Raiders see empowerment through fear. And Scavengers see hope. The dream that with enough effort, they too can become something greater than flesh. Across every wasteland, every ruined city, the sight of power armor carries weight. It's the last true connection between humanity's past and its uncertain future. Every region in Fallout's vast world tells its own story through the armor that its survivors wear, and nowhere is that truer than with power armor. Though it all shares a common origin in pre-war America, the differences between regions, from the arid Mojave to the crumbling Commonwealth and the irradiated forests of Appalachia, reveal how power armor evolved to match its environment, its people, and their philosophy. In the Mojave, power armor carries the weight of secrecy. The Brotherhood there, descendants of the Lost Hills chapter, learned bitter lessons from their wars with the new California Republic. Their numbers were shattered, their bunkers sealed, and their technology hoarded like sacred scripture. When the Courier encounters them in Fallout New Vegas, their power armor gleams under dim underground light, never exposed to the desert sun. It's not a symbol of dominance anymore. It's an artifact of survival. The Mojave chapter believes that showing their armor is an invitation for extermination, They've traded the proud marches of earlier chapters for whispers in the dark. Some soldiers even go years without wearing their suits, preserving the limited fusion cores and repair materials they still possess. The tension between the armor's strength and its obsolescence defines their story. Their power armor is immaculate, but their spirit is worn thin. Contrast that with the Commonwealth's Brotherhood, which thrives on visibility and spectacle. When their massive airship, the Prydwen, looms over Boston in Fallout 4, its arrival signals a return of military order. The Brotherhood there deploys knights and paladins in polished T-60 suits, their helmets gleaming beneath spotlights as they patrol the ruins. To the settlers below, the sight is awe-inspiring and terrifying, a vision of the old world's military reborn. Elder Maxon, named after the Brotherhood's founder, deliberately uses the armor as propaganda. The sound of servos and the sight of laser fire echoing off power armor plating send a message. The Brotherhood is the rightful heir to the old world's technology. It's no coincidence that the T-60 became synonymous with that campaign. Its bulky silhouette, intimidating presence, and almost ceremonial design reflect the faction's growing authoritarianism. Further south, in the irradiated valleys and mountain hollows of Appalachia, power armor tells a very different tale. Fallout 76 presents a world not yet dominated by any one faction, where the remnants of pre-war technology lie scattered across civilian industries and military outposts. Here, the player stumbles upon power armor frames hidden in garages, mines, and fire stations, relics waiting to be claimed by whoever has the knowledge to use them. Appalachia's most unique contribution to the power armor lineage is the Ultrasight Power Armor, a suit born from desperation rather than ambition. Crafted from crystallized radioactive material unique to the region, Ultrasight armor was created by the Brotherhood of Steel to combat the Scorched Plague. Its composition allowed it to withstand intense radiation and resist biological infection, something no previous model could achieve. The armor's faint bioluminescent glow and jagged mineral textures make it feel almost alive, a fusion of organic and mechanical resilience. It's fitting that in a land where the environment itself is mutating, humanity's technology would mutate too. Beyond Ultrasight, Appalachia gave rise to several remarkable regional models that stand apart from the classic military lineage. The Excavator Power Armor, for example, represents the fusion of civilian engineering and industrial necessity. Designed by Garahan Mining Company, it's easily recognizable by its bright yellow plating and heavy hydraulic limbs. Its practical purpose, to increase the wearer's lifting capacity and withstand mine collapses, made it invaluable for survival after the war. When the bombs fell, miners repurposed it for defense, turning a work tool into a weapon of endurance. In many ways, it's a perfect reflection of the Wasteland's ethos, humanity reshaping its past to survive its present. Meanwhile, the Raider power armor found in the region paints a more chaotic picture. Built from scavenged steel, engine blocks, and airplane fuselages, these suits look like nightmares forged from junk. The Raiders of Appalachia didn't just want armor, they wanted a statement, proof that they could take the most sacred symbol of power and twist it into something that defied order. Rusted, jagged, and almost organic in shape, Raider power armor is terrifying because it's a parody of progress. It lacks the precision of the T-Series, but in its crude construction lies a different kind of genius, the art of survival through corruption. The fact that such suits even function is a testament to the Wasteland's creativity. Every piston and plate was once something else, part of a car, a robot, or a generator, now reborn as armor for the lawless. Other regions contributed their own modifications and philosophies. In the capital Wasteland, The Brotherhood's adoption of the T-45D marked a shift from historical reverence to practical necessity. It was the only model they could mass produce and maintain with the limited resources available. The T-45D's rugged design, with its exposed hydraulics and heavy frame, became synonymous with early post-war Brotherhood forces. Its imperfections, bulkiness, high power consumption, and weight were accepted trade-offs for durability. That version of the Brotherhood, under Elder Lyons, saw power armor less as a symbol of purity and more as a shield for humanity's last survivors. Their soldiers waded into super mutant nests and irradiated ruins, not for conquest but for protection. In lore, this shift represents a rare instance where the armor's meaning changed not because of technology, but because of ideology. Developers have always mirrored these regional contrasts through visual and mechanical design. When Bethesda took over the franchise, they deliberately used power armor to convey each faction's personality. In Fallout 3, the T-45D is intentionally clunky, a relic that mirrors the Brotherhood's declining influence and the player's struggle for survival. In Fallout 4, the T-60's strength and polish symbolize a new era of dominance and control. And in Fallout 76, the abundance of diverse armor types reflects a world in flux, not yet settled, still rediscovering what power means. Even within the game mechanics, the differences tell a story. Power armor went from being a simple armor set in Fallout 1 and 2 to a class-restrictive equipment in New Vegas, and finally to a full, immersive exosuit in Fallout 4 and 76. This evolution parallels the lore's own progression, from myth to machine, from memory to reality. Among the most fascinating unreleased or conceptual armors are those hidden within developer archives and art books. One early concept for Fallout 4 showcased a recon power armor designed for stealth and reconnaissance missions. It featured thinner plating, reduced weight, and adaptive camouflage similar to the Chinese stealth armor. Though it never appeared in the final game, traces of its design remain in the lighter T-60 operator paint variants. Another unused concept from Fallout 76 hinted at an Aquila model, an Enclave-inspired suit with avian-themed plating, representing dominance through flight. These glimpses into what could have been highlight how much thought developers put into every stage of the armor's design. Each variant tells not just an in-universe story, but a real-world creative one. Regional aesthetics also influence how power armor interacts with its environment. In the Mojave, its bulk contrasts with the sparse, dusty landscape, a moving fortress against the emptiness. In the Commonwealth, its metal gleam reflects shattered glass and neon signs, creating an image of industrial decay. In Appalachia, power armor often looks like part of the wilderness itself, its rust and moss blending into the overgrown ruins. The suits don't just exist in their world, they belong to it. This environmental storytelling gives each region's armor a soul. When a wanderer stumbles upon a rusted T-45 half buried in mud, it doesn't feel like loot. It feels like history, like something the Earth itself is trying to reclaim. Even the smallest regional differences tell deep stories. In the Mojave, the Brotherhood's helmets are often dented, their visors scratched, their servos patched with scavenged pre-war parts. In contrast, the Enclave's armors in the same region, sleek, jet black, and coldly efficient, reflect the arrogance of perfection. Appalachia's variants, covered in makeshift wiring and painted symbols, evoke frontier craftsmanship. The Commonwealths are militarized, disciplined, symmetrical. Each one mirrors its society's psychology. Fear in the Mojave, ambition in the Commonwealth, adaptability in Appalachia. Beyond the surface, power armor has always been a metaphor for regional identity, how communities cling to or reinterpret the past. The Mojave hides its armor like it hides its history. The Commonwealth parades it, desperate to rebuild the illusion of order. Appalachia experiments, improvises, and mutates it, mirroring its chaotic rebirth. The beauty of Fallout is that all three are valid responses to collapse. Power armor becomes the connective tissue that binds these stories, a single invention seen through 1,000 perspectives. In Fallout's development history, the shift toward making power armor regionally distinct was deliberate. In interviews, Bethesda designers explained that they wanted players to feel the texture of the world through its armor. The T-51 might dominate one region, while the T-60 reigns in another, each reflecting the remnants of the industries that built them. The devs even embedded subtle details like serial numbers and manufacturing tags to hint at which military branch produced a given unit. Some helmets in Fallout 4's files bear markings from U.S. Army units stationed at Fort Strong, while others are tagged NAD-22, referring to Naval Armor Division prototypes. These micro-details reward observant players, turning every discovery into a piece of archaeological storytelling. Power armor also bridges the player's role across regions. In one game, you're a survivor struggling to restore a broken T-45. In another, you're an emissary of the Brotherhood, commanding legions of armored soldiers. Yet, in every version, the suit serves the same narrative function: to make the player feel the weight of history. The moment you climb in and hear the hydraulics hiss, the boundary between past and present dissolves. You become part of the same lineage that once fought in Anchorage, marched under the Brotherhood's banners, and scavenged the bones of a dead nation. The armor doesn't care where it came from, it only remembers who was strong enough to wear it. In the grand scheme of Fallout's world, power armor is the one constant that connects every wasteland, every timeline, every survivor. It's the bridge between the idealism of the pre-war world and the harsh pragmatism of the post-war one. Whether buried under sand in the Mojave, displayed with pride in the Commonwealth, or glowing with ultrasight energy in Appalachia, each suit carries the same message: humanity endures not because of its strength, but because of its will to rebuild. The armor may rust, the cores may fade, but as long as someone remembers how to repair them, the legacy continues. To understand the power of power armor, you have to look beneath the plating, into the science, engineering, and fragile human ingenuity that kept it alive long after the world ended. Every hiss of hydraulics, every surge of the fusion core, every servo adjustment is a testament to a civilization that once believed technology could solve anything. Power armor wasn't simply built, it was engineered as a triumph of biomechanical design, combining the raw strength of machinery with the precision of the human nervous system. Its creation was a fusion of biology, physics, and desperation. At the heart of every power armor unit lies the fusion core, the single most vital and volatile component. Designed as miniature reactors, these cores generate power through a controlled fusion reaction that releases near-limitless energy, at least in theory. In practice, maintaining stability in such a compact device was one of the greatest scientific challenges of the pre-war era. Fallout's lore describes multiple generations of fusion cores, each more efficient than the last. Early models required constant replacement, lasting only a few hours of operation. Later variants, such as those used in the T-60 and X-01 suits, could sustain power for days, with sophisticated regulators that adapted output to user motion. The fusion core hum that echoes through a suit's frame isn't just an aesthetic detail, it's the sound of a miniature sun caged inside metal. The technology was pioneered by Poseidon Energy and refined by Westech two of the most influential corporations in pre-war America. Poseidon provided the core technology, originally intended for civilian energy infrastructure, while Westech integrated it into military applications. This partnership gave birth to the first stable, portable fusion cells capable of powering not only exosuits, but entire vehicles and field equipment. The same breakthroughs that led to power armor also fueled America's vast network of fusion-powered cars, planes, and robots. It's this dependency on fusion technology that became both humanity's greatest accomplishment and its downfall. The very energy source that powered the armor also powered the bombs that ended civilization. In that irony lies one of Fallout's most poetic truths. Humanity created infinite power only to use it to destroy itself. Power armor's internal structure is a marvel of balance and engineering. Beneath its plates, a complex web of servomotors and artificial muscle fibers amplifies human strength by magnitudes. Each limb of the suit is synchronized with its wearer through a system of neural feedback sensors embedded in the frame's underlay. These sensors detect micro movements and muscle tension, translating them into electrical signals that control the suit's hydraulic pistons. It's why a trained user can move with near-natural grace despite the armor's massive weight. Without that delicate synchronization, even the smallest misalignment could result in catastrophic failure, crushed limbs, twisted joints, or mechanical seizure. This is why only trained personnel can safely operate a suit. The Brotherhood's strict requirement for power armor training isn't just tradition, it's survival. The materials used in construction were just as advanced. The T-45 relied heavily on steel composites and hydraulic servos, making it powerful but inefficient. The T-51 revolutionized the field by introducing polylaminate composite plating, a material light enough to allow agility but strong enough to deflect armor-piercing rounds. Later models, like the T-60 and X-01, integrated titanium alloys, radiation dispersive coatings, and anti-corrosive ceramic linings. These advancements weren't just cosmetic upgrades, they reflected an evolving understanding of post-nuclear warfare. As radiation levels rose across the world, engineers realized they weren't just building armor for combat, they were building armor for survival. A soldier could now fight in environments that would have killed an unprotected human in seconds. Inside the helmet, the heads-up display, HUD, transformed combat into data. The overlay tracked ammunition, health, compass direction, and even atmospheric radiation. It was the culmination of decades of Westech research into sensory integration. The idea was to make the armor an extension of the human body, a second skin that would react faster than thought. The visor's optics contained multi-spectrum sensors capable of detecting infrared, ultraviolet, and even faint traces of chemical agents. Communication systems allowed encrypted radio transmissions between units, forming the backbone of coordinated mechanized infantry squads. This integration of information and protection made power armor one of the most advanced personal combat systems in human history, but it also introduced an eerie sensation, the feeling that the suit knew more than its wearer. Many soldiers reported feeling like passengers inside their own armor, guided by a machine that anticipated their every move. One of the more fascinating technological mysteries of Fallout's lore is the question of AI-assisted control. Some holotapes and terminal logs hint at prototype models that incorporated early artificial intelligence, allowing suits to operate autonomously for short periods. These semi-sentient armors were designed for unmanned missions in hazardous environments. Though the technology was never perfected, A few fragments remain scattered across Fallout's wastelands, suits that move on their own, defending old bunkers or patrolling forgotten battlefields. Whether these are remnants of automated defense programs or malfunctioning neural sync systems is never clear, but the idea of armor that remembers, that continues to function long after its pilot has died, adds a haunting layer to its mythology. The practical upkeep of power armor in the wasteland is another marvel of human resilience. In a world without factories or supply chains, every replacement limb, servo, and capacitor must be scavenged or jury-rigged. The Brotherhood's scribes became master engineers, capable of rebuilding entire suits from scrap. Fallout 4's crafting system captures this ingenuity, replacing damaged limbs, upgrading plating, and customizing paint schemes. Each modification tells a story. Military-grade materials scavenged from old bases, civilian paint jobs applied by wanderers, or radiation shields fashioned from melted reactor plates. The armor may be ancient, but the people who maintain it breathe new life into it with every repair. That cycle of decay and restoration mirrors the entire Fallout world, technology surviving not because it was meant to, but because someone cared enough to keep it running. From a lore perspective, the existence of power armor also redefined how humanity interacted with warfare. Before its invention, soldiers relied on cover, tactics, and numbers. After power armor, battles became spectacles of endurance and dominance. A single squad of T-51 units could hold off entire platoons of conventional infantry. This imbalance fueled a technological arms race that spiraled out of control. China responded with stealth armor, lighter, agile, and nearly invisible, while America doubled down on brute force. By the time the Great War began, both nations had developed weapons so advanced they rendered victory meaningless. Power armor was meant to save soldiers' lives, but in the end, it only extended the inevitable destruction. From a thematic standpoint, the armor's science reflects Fallout's fascination with the limits of human control. The idea that man can build something so advanced it begins to outlive its purpose is central to the series' tone. Just as vaults became prisons disguised as sanctuaries, and robots became caretakers turned killers, power armor became both protector and parasite. The more it shielded humanity from danger, the less capable humanity became without it. It's no coincidence that the Brotherhood reveres the armor while also fearing the misuse of technology. They see in it both salvation and temptation, the duality that defines every piece of surviving pre-war tech. Some in-universe documents go further, suggesting that the design principles behind power armor were inspired by pre-war advances in biomechanical prosthetics. Early research into replacing lost limbs with servo-assisted machinery laid the foundation for the exoskeleton technology that became military-grade armor. The idea was that the human body could be augmented, made stronger, faster, and more resilient. West-Tech scientists often use the phrase bio-integrated man-machine interface to describe their vision. It's an unsettling concept, the merging of humanity and machinery long before the world ended. That philosophy lived on through the Enclave and Brotherhood, both inheritors of West-Tech's legacy. They just interpreted it differently. One sought to perfect humanity through control, the other through preservation. The engineering behind the helmet's filtration systems also reveals much about pre-war fears. Designed to protect against nuclear fallout, biological weapons, and toxic gas, the helmets were self-contained life support units. Internal air filters used microreactive charcoal layers and electromagnetic dust traps to neutralize contaminants. Some advanced suits even recycled the wearer's exhaled carbon dioxide into oxygen through microfusion-based reoxygenation. a concept derived from spacesuit technology. The end result was that a fully sealed suit of power armor could operate indefinitely in environments where life shouldn't exist. It's no wonder that so many post-war explorers consider the armor sacred. It's the closest humanity ever came to conquering death itself. Even the sound design in Fallout reflects the physics of the armor. The creak of moving servos, the echoing steps, and the muffled voices inside the helmet aren't just aesthetic. They're grounded in plausible acoustics. The reverb you hear when speaking from inside a helmet simulates how sound waves bounce inside a sealed chamber. The heavy metallic thuds of walking reflect how the armor redistributes weight across hydraulically stabilized joints. Bethesda's audio engineers have described this as tactile immersion, the goal being to make players feel like they're truly inside the machine. The realism of these sounds deepens the connection between the player and the lore. When you move, the suit feels alive. When you stop, you can almost hear it breathing. From the outside, power armor might seem like an unstoppable force, but from the inside, it's a delicate ecosystem of balance and risk. Every fusion surge has to be regulated, every servo cooled, every piston oiled. The suit protects you, but it also owns you. Once you climb inside, you're committed, bound to its limitations and its strengths. In that sense, power armor isn't just technology, it's a relationship. It demands trust, understanding, and care. For the Brotherhood, that's why it's sacred. For the Enclave, that's why it's weaponized. And for the Wastelander, that's why it's a miracle. Power armor was never just metal and wiring. It was a mirror. It reflected everything humanity believed about itself. Its courage, its arrogance, its yearning to be indestructible. Every time someone climbed into one, they weren't just protecting their body, they were protecting their idea of what it meant to be human in a world that had already lost its humanity. That's why, across Fallout's vast and fractured timeline, the image of power armor carries a kind of mythic weight. It's not merely a technological relic, it's a spiritual symbol of survival, control, and the blurred boundary between salvation and tyranny. From the moment Roger Maxson and his soldiers sealed themselves inside Mariposa during the Great War, the suit became the Brotherhood's first scripture. Maxson understood that the armor wasn't just a weapon, it was proof that knowledge could endure when nations couldn't. When he founded the Brotherhood of Steel, his men saw power armor as more than a uniform. It was an oath. The polished steel plates became both a burden and a blessing, a reminder of their duty to guard what remained of civilization. Over centuries, that belief hardened into doctrine. Initiates bowed before suits as if before shrines, their training built around the idea that humanity's greatest danger came from its own inventions. The irony is that the Brotherhood used the very thing it feared most as the foundation of its identity. To preserve technology, they had to wield it, to become one with it. Every time a paladin marched into battle, it was both a prayer and a paradox. In contrast, the Enclave viewed power armor as inheritance. They didn't worship it, they claimed it. To them, it was the birthright of the pure. In their ideology, power armor wasn't a tool to protect humanity, it was a filter to decide who deserved to survive. Their soldiers, in gleaming black, advanced power armor, didn't see themselves as men in machines, but as the next step in evolution. The Enclave's Mark II suits, with their bone-like contours and crimson optics, were designed to evoke superiority and fear. When a squad of Enclave troopers emerged from the fog, they didn't march, they glided, precise and emotionless. Inside, the armor's neural systems dampened adrenaline and suppressed fatigue, creating soldiers who could fight for days without rest. It was the realization of humanity's oldest fantasy, perfection without consequence. Yet that fantasy came at the cost of empathy. In their pursuit of purity, the Enclave forgot why the armor was built in the first place: to protect people, not to define them. Throughout Fallout's universe, certain individuals have embodied the complex morality of wearing such armor. In the Capital Wasteland, Sarah Lyons stood as the Brotherhood's ideal realized, a leader who saw the armor not as privilege, but as responsibility. Her T-45D suit became a beacon for civilians who looked to the Brotherhood for protection. She treated the armor as an extension of her oath, not her ego. In contrast, Colonel Autumn of the Enclave wore his power armor like a crown, using it to enforce a twisted vision of order. The difference between the two wasn't just ideology, it was what the armor meant to them. For Lyons, it was duty. For Autumn, it was dominion. In the Commonwealth, Paladin Danse represents one of Fallout's most human power armor stories. A loyal soldier, utterly devoted to the Brotherhood's mission, Danse's identity is shattered when he discovers that he's a synth. The same armor that once defined his loyalty becomes his prison, a symbol of a belief system that can no longer accept him. Standing there in that bulky T-60, you can feel the tragedy. A man built for duty, encased in steel, suddenly realizing the very order he served would now destroy him for what he is. The armor, once protection, becomes judgment. It's a reminder that no machine, no matter how powerful, can shield a person from truth. Fallout 4's Elder Arthur Maxson, descendant of the Brotherhood's founder, reinterprets the legacy in his own image. His armor gleams with authority, polished to perfection, its lines sharp and militaristic. Maxson doesn't just wear it, he weaponizes it as theater. Every appearance is calculated to inspire loyalty and fear. He understands that in the wasteland, image is power. The Prydwen's arrival, flanked by ranks of armored knights descending from the skies, is one of the most imposing spectacles in Fallout history. For Maxson, power armor isn't just protection, it's propaganda. The armor becomes an extension of the Brotherhood's message: obedience, unity, and control. Yet even he is haunted by the same paradox that plagued his ancestors: the fear that in trying to preserve the old world's strength, he is only repeating its mistakes. Then there are the quiet wearers, the unnamed wanderers and scavengers who stumble upon these suits in forgotten garages, their frames half buried in mud and time. These people don't have factions, doctrines, or legacies. When they find power armor, it isn't about ideology, it's about survival. For them, the suit isn't holy, it's hope. A rusted T-45 with one missing arm, powered by a dying fusion core, can still mean the difference between life and death in a fight against raiders or radiation. These wanderers don't worship the armor. They fix it with duct tape, paint it in whatever color they can find, and make it their own. In their hands, the armor's meaning becomes personal, less about what it represents, and more about what it allows them to keep. A few more breaths, a few more steps through the endless wasteland. Philosophically, the armor stands at the heart of Fallout's tension between dependence and resilience. To wear, it is to acknowledge humanity's weakness. The world is too dangerous for flesh alone, and so we wrap ourselves in steel. But the moment we do, we lose something intangible: vulnerability, humility, perhaps even soul. In Fallout 1 and 2, power armor was the ultimate symbol of ascension, the final reward for surviving a harsh world. It turned the player into a god among mortals. Yet, even then, the tone was somber. The armor didn't make the wasteland less cruel. It only made you feel it less. That numbness, that detachment, is what gives power armor its quiet tragedy. It's protection, but it's also distance. In this sense, the armor becomes a metaphor for every comfort humans create to shield themselves from consequence. Fallout's writers have often hinted at this theme, that the same desire to be untouchable is what doomed the old world. The bombs didn't fall because of hatred alone. They fell because people believed they could survive anything. Power armor is the physical embodiment of that belief. Every time someone repairs a suit and straps it on, they're reliving the same contradiction that built and destroyed civilization. The idea that if we build something strong enough, we'll never have to change ourselves. Yet, even with that irony, there's something deeply human about the persistence of these machines. Long after their makers turn to dust, the suits still stand. In Fallout 76's Appalachia, you can find entire rows of them in abandoned depots, covered in moss and dust, still waiting. Some hum faintly, their fusion cores flickering, as if dreaming of the soldiers who never returned. Others stand motionless, their helmets staring into the dark like tombstones. And then there are the ones that still walk, piloted by wanderers who don't even know the names of the men who once wore them. In that continuity, the passing of armor from one generation to the next, Fallout captures something beautiful. That technology, for all its danger, also carries memory. The moral duality of power armor is echoed in its symbolism throughout the games. When the Brotherhood wears it, it means discipline. When the Enclave wears it, it means domination. When a Raider wears it, it means chaos. When a Wanderer wears it, it means survival. The same tool that can enforce tyranny can also preserve life. Fallout doesn't tell the player which is right. It simply lets them feel the weight of the decision. The moment you step into a suit, you inherit that burden. You become a piece of history, whether you want to or not. Even among the developers, this symbolism has guided how power armor is portrayed. Todd Howard once described it as the Excalibur of Fallout, an artifact of ultimate power meant to make the player feel awe, but also responsibility. Artists spend months refining every scratch, dent, and rust streak to give it personality. They treat the armor as a character in its own right, a companion made of bolts instead of bones. In concept art, early designs often show the armor standing alone, surrounded by silence, as if it's waiting for someone worthy to awaken it. That's the true emotional gravity of power armor. It's not invincible, it's lonely. It's a monument to everything humanity tried to hold on to, still standing amid the ruins. When you think about it, the power armor's greatest irony is that it's both the reason the world ended and the reason it still endures. It was born from the same technology that caused the bombs to fall, yet it remains the most reliable protector against what those bombs created. Every plate, every circuit, every glowing fusion core carries that contradiction inside it, destruction and salvation bound together forever. That's why it fits so perfectly into Fallout's world. The armor isn't just equipment, it's a philosophy. It says that even when everything breaks, we will build again, even if what we build is made from the bones of our mistakes. So when you see that iconic silhouette, the T-51 helmet half buried in ash, the glowing red eyes of the X-01 flickering through fog, or a lone wanderer silhouetted against a dead sunset, you're not just looking at armor. You're looking at the history of a species that refuses to give up. A machine built to fight wars has become a relic of endurance, and maybe that's why, after all this time, the sound of those heavy footsteps still feels comforting. It reminds us that somewhere, beneath the steel and circuits, there's still a human heartbeat, quiet, steady, and unbroken. When you reach the end of Fallout's long, winding history, when the echoes of bombs and the hum of old reactors fade into silence, one thing remains: the shape of a man in armor. Not because it's invincible, not because it conquered the wasteland, but because it endures. Power armor is the thread that ties every age of Fallout together, from the frozen tundra of Anchorage to the scorched deserts of the Mojave, from the broken towers of the Commonwealth to the fog-soaked valleys of Appalachia. It has outlasted governments, wars, ideologies, and even the memories of those who first wore it. In a world where almost everything has turned to dust, the armor still stands, a monument to the stubbornness of humanity, the refusal to surrender to extinction. The legacy of power armor begins with a contradiction. It was born as a weapon but became a refuge. The T-45, the T-51, the T-60, each generation brought humanity closer to safety but further from itself. By the time the X-01 and Hellfire suits emerged, their wearers were more machine than man. Yet, somehow, the suit remained deeply human. It carries fingerprints, scratches, and scars. You can tell the story of the wasteland just by looking at one. The burn paint where a plasma shot hit, the cracked visor from a super mutants club, the bloodstain that never quite washed away. Every suit is a record of struggle, its own quiet chronicle of survival. What makes power armor so enduring, both in-universe and in the hearts of Fallout's fans, is that it represents the last illusion of control in a world that lost it. It's the promise that, no matter how broken the Earth becomes, there's still something you can build that the wasteland can't immediately take away. When you're inside it, the world's chaos feels distant. The wind sounds muffled. The radiation crackles outside, but it can't touch you. It's an illusion. Yes, fusion cores die, plating breaks, seals leak, but in that illusion is comfort. It's a small piece of the old world's certainty carried into the new one. For the people of Fallout, wearing power armor is the closest thing left to feeling safe. In a strange way, power armor has become the wasteland's language of hope. For some, it's the sign of the Brotherhood marching to restore order. For others, it's the shadow of the Enclave returning to claim dominion. To scavengers, it's a dream, the ultimate find, the one thing that might finally turn them from prey to predator. And to wanderers who walk alone, it's a companion. Inside the armor, they can move through storms and silence without fear. The fusion hum becomes a heartbeat, steady and mechanical, reminding them that life, in some form, continues. Fallout storytelling always returns to that rhythm, the sound of machinery carrying human will through impossible odds. In Fallout 76, you can stumble upon empty frames still standing upright in forgotten garages. Their joints squeak softly when the wind blows, vines climb their legs, flowers bloom around their boots, and rust eats away at their once polished metal. They've become statues of memory, frozen mid-step, waiting for someone to return. And sometimes, someone does. A traveler finds them, wipes the dust away, and for a moment, the armor lives again. The servos wake, the visor lights flicker, and the hum of fusion fills the air. In that instant, the world feels young again, the past and present merging in the sound of something ancient, rediscovering purpose. It's one of Fallout's most poetic themes, the idea that even in decay, renewal exists. The meaning of power armor changes with each wearer. To the Brotherhood, it's discipline. To the Enclave, it's superiority. To the NCR, it's the unattainable relic of a bygone empire. But to the wanderer, the player, the listener, the dreamer, it's possibility. It's the belief that you can take what was meant for destruction and turn it into protection, that you can wear the mistakes of the past and use them to shield the fragile hope of the future. Power armor is not just technology, it's redemption made tangible. It's proof that even after the end, we can still learn, adapt, and rebuild. There's a certain quiet irony in how Fallout's world reveres this machine. The armor was built by a civilization that destroyed itself, yet it's revered by the one that came after. The same technology that once fed war now protects farmers, scavengers, and settlers. That cycle of transformation, of horror into hope, defines Fallout's emotional core. Every vault, every robot, every ruined city carries a whisper of the same truth, that what was once meant to end the world can also help rebuild it. The armor stands as the most visible symbol of that transformation. Even in the real world, outside Fallout's fiction, the image of power armor has become iconic. The silhouette of the T-51B helmet, with its circular eyes and breathing tubes, has become as recognizable as the Pip-Boy or the Vault-Tec logo. It embodies everything that makes Fallout unique, its blend of 1950s optimism and post-nuclear despair. It's both retro and futuristic, both tragic and hopeful. Developers often refer to it as the soul of Fallout's identity, the one visual that can instantly evoke the entire tone of the series. Ruined beauty, rusted glory, and the faint hum of survival. When players step into a suit for the first time, they aren't just upgrading their stats, they're inheriting a legacy that began before the bombs fell and will continue as long as the world keeps turning. The armor's future within Fallout's lore feels inevitable yet uncertain. As new factions rise and old ones fall, every generation rediscovers the same relics and finds new meaning in them. The Brotherhood may fracture again, the Enclave may resurface, and new inventors may build new models from the skeletons of old machines. But the core idea, that humans will always find a way to armor themselves against their own mistakes, will remain. Perhaps, in some distant future within Fallout's world, someone will finally perfect it, a suit that doesn't just protect the body, but heals the world itself. Until then, it will remain what it has always been, a beautiful contradiction, a machine built to preserve life in a world built to destroy it. Even within its contradictions, power armor is strangely peaceful. When you're inside it, the world outside seems quieter, more distant. The wind turns to whispers, and the endless wasteland feels almost gentle. You can hear the rhythmic pulse of the fusion core behind you, not menacing, but calming, like a heartbeat that isn't your own. The weight of the armor grounds you, and the glowing display ahead frames the world in a soft electronic haze. Fallout's brilliance lies in that sensation, the idea that safety, even artificial, can still feel like peace. For a moment, you can forget the ruins, the radiation, the hunger. Inside the armor, you are simply alive, suspended between the past that built it and the future that still waits. If you listen closely, you can almost imagine the voices of those who wore it before. The soldiers of Anchorage, trudging through snow and blood, the Brotherhood paladins patrolling silent cities, the Enclave officers marching beneath storm clouds, and beyond them all, the nameless wanderers who found these relics and made them their own. Each one left something behind, a dent, a weld, a layer of paint, a story. Power armor is a chorus of all those voices, fused into metal and motion. When you move in it, you carry them with you. And so, long after the last reactor cools and the last fusion core fades, the armor will remain. Maybe it will stand buried in sand, its visor dark, but its form intact. Maybe it will lie at the bottom of a flooded vault, a monument to a civilization that refused to surrender. Or maybe, in some quiet corner of the wasteland, someone will find it again, brush off the dust, climb inside, and hear that ancient hum return. And in that moment, for just a little while, the world will feel alive again. Power Armor's story isn't one of endings, it's one of continuity. It's the bridge between the world that was and the one that struggles to be. It carries not just strength, but memory. Not just survival, but meaning. It reminds us that even in ruin, humanity builds. Even in silence, it remembers. And even in darkness, it endures. The armor was never about perfection. It was about persistence, the ability to keep walking through the ashes when everything else has stopped. So if you ever find yourself in that world, the cracked highways stretching to the horizon, the faint glow of radiation on the wind, and you see the shape of a power armor frame standing alone in the distance, stop for a moment. Listen to the hum of the fusion core. Feel the ground vibrate beneath its steps, because what you're hearing isn't just a machine. It's history still moving. It's humanity refusing to vanish. And as long as that sound echoes through the wasteland, the story of Fallout and of the people who refuse to give up will never truly end. Every great story in Fallout ends the same way, quietly. The bombs have long since fallen, the echoes of civilization have turned to dust, and the world carries on in a strange stillness that only the wasteland understands. But within that silence, there's always motion, a faint mechanical hum, a set of heavy footsteps, the soft glow of a fusion core burning in the dark. Power armor was never meant to last this long, yet somehow it does. The earth corrodes everything else. The vault doors rust, the cities crumble, the skeletons turn to powder, but the armor remains. It stands like a fossil of humanity's ambition, defying time itself. In Fallout's universe, few things are truly eternal, yet those frames of steel seem to resist the world's slow surrender. If you wander long enough through the ruins, you start to notice something subtle. Power armor isn't just scattered randomly. It always appears in places that meant something once. A soldier's body still slumped in a trench, his armor cracked but still shielding him. A crashed vertibird, its pilot's T-60 frozen in place, one hand still clutching the controls. An underground vault where a Brotherhood scribe sealed herself inside her armor and never left. These relics form a map of humanity's final stand, points of light in an ocean of darkness. And when you find one, when you kneel beside that lifeless frame and see your reflection in its cracked visor, you realize that Fallout's power armor isn't about invincibility at all. It's about the effort to endure. It's about everything humanity tried to hold on to when the world started to die. What makes these suits haunting is that they were never meant for one person. They were built for armies, for nations, for causes that no longer exist. Every model carries the ghost of a civilization that believed in forever. The T-45 believed in patriotism. The T-51 believed in victory. The T-60 believed in order. The X-1 believed in control. But when you find them in the wasteland, stripped of emblems and factions, they all tell the same story. The story of people who tried to survive in a world that refused to forgive them. In that sense, power armor is Fallout's purest truth. It's not the machine that matters, it's the person who finds it next. In Appalachia, miners turned excavation suits into armor. In the Commonwealth, settlers turned military relics into lifelines. In the Mojave, the Brotherhood sealed their faith inside their helmets and waited for the world to forget them. And yet, across every region, across every century, someone always rediscovers the same thing: a frame, a fusion core, a spark. That rediscovery is what keeps the wasteland alive. It's a ritual older than any faction, older than any vault. The act of taking what's broken and giving it purpose again. Fallout's world isn't kind to memory. Whole cities vanish beneath sand and radiation. But the armor remembers. It remembers every hand that fixed it, every step it took across the dead world. When the player climbs into one for the first time, the act feels sacred, even if they don't realize why. The sound of the clamps locking, the power surging through the frame, the weight settling on their shoulders. It's more than just a mechanical experience. It's a symbolic inheritance. It's the moment when the past and the present overlap. That's why Fallout's quietest moments often happen inside the suit. Out there, you can hear the wind rushing past, the faint creak of the servos, the steady rhythm of your steps. The wasteland becomes distant, and for the first time, the chaos feels small. That's what the armor offers, not salvation, but silence. Some say the armor changed humanity forever, that once people learned to walk in metal skin, they forgot how to walk without it. That might be true, but there's also something hopeful in that transformation. Humanity didn't vanish, it adapted. It turned fragility into strength, weakness into invention. Even now, long after the last pre-war engineer has turned to dust, people still find ways to repair fusion cores, recalibrate servos, and weld shattered plating back together. The Brotherhood likes to think they alone preserve the old world's knowledge, but the truth is simpler. Everyone in Fallout preserves it in their own way. Every scavenger who patches up a broken suit with scrap metal, every settler who powers a generator with a salvaged core, every child who stares up at a knight in shining armor and feels safe for the first time, they're all part of the same legacy. That's why the image of a wanderer in power armor resonates so deeply. It's not just strength, it's memory, continuity, and defiance. A reminder that no matter how far humanity falls, it still stands back up. Fallout stories have always been about small acts of resistance. The vault dweller who saved their people, the lone courier who rewrote the fate of a desert, the wanderer who rebuilt a city, one settlement at a time. Power armor is just the vessel that carries those stories forward. Every scratch on its plating, every scorch mark, every dent tells the tale of someone who refused to disappear. The future of Fallout, whatever worlds or factions it might explore, will always return to this image. Whether the next wasteland is in a frozen north or a decaying metropolis, there will always be a suit of power armor waiting in the shadows, humming softly, patient as time itself. Someone will find it. Someone will climb inside, and in that moment, humanity's story will start again. That's the secret truth of Fallout. There is no final chapter, no real ending. As long as someone remembers how to rebuild, how to repair, how to move forward, the story continues. Power armor is the symbol of that endless loop, not a relic of the past, but the bridge to the next beginning. Even after hundreds of years, the sound of power armor footsteps still carries across the wasteland. They echo down empty highways, through forgotten cities, and across the cracked bones of the old world. And if you listen closely, you can tell the difference. A Brotherhood patrol moves in rhythm, orderly, precise, almost ceremonial. A raider stomps and growls, the servos shrieking from neglect. A wanderer walks more slowly, carefully, savoring the peace that comes with being untouchable for just a little while. These small variations, these rhythms, are Fallout's heartbeat. They remind us that even in uniformity, individuality survives. Each person who wears the armor leaves a trace of themselves inside it. When the sun sets over the wasteland, the metal catches the light in a way that feels almost reverent. The glowing eyes of a T-51 or X-01 look out over a horizon filled with ruins, and for a moment, it almost feels like the armor is watching over the world it once destroyed. There's beauty in that, a kind of forgiveness written in rust and radiation. Fallout has always found poetry in paradox, and power armor is its most beautiful contradiction. It's both the cause of the apocalypse and the cure for it, both weapon and refuge, both past and future. It doesn't ask for redemption, but it gives it anyway, simply by enduring. In a way, every person who plays Fallout becomes part of that legacy. You repair the armor, you power it up, you walk through the ruins, and you carry the same question that every generation in that universe asks. How do we survive what we've done? Power armor doesn't answer the question. It just gives you time to keep asking it. It holds back the death of the world long enough for you to look around and see what's worth saving. Maybe that's why it's comforting. The sound of those heavy steps, the glow of the visor, the slow rhythm of the core. It's a lullaby written by the last survivors of humanity, a song of endurance. A promise that even when everything burns, there will still be someone walking through the smoke, carrying what's left of us on their shoulders. When the world finally quiets, when the storms fade, the fires die, and the stars return, maybe somewhere in the ruins, one last suit will still be standing. Maybe it will be empty, its pilot long gone, the metal cool and still beneath the moonlight. Maybe its shadow will stretch across the broken ground like a monument to everything that came before. And maybe, someday, someone new will find it. Someone who doesn't know what it was or why it was built, only that it feels right to stand inside it. They'll turn the switch, hear that familiar hum, and feel the world wake up again. That's the true legacy of power armor, not its strength, not its technology, but its endurance. It keeps moving long after everything else stops. It keeps breathing long after the air has turned to poison. It keeps remembering when even history forgets. It's the sound of humanity refusing to vanish, echoing through steel lungs across centuries of ruin. And if you listen to that sound, really listen, it almost feels like the world itself is whispering back, "We're still here."